Hey guys, Argent here. Now there's some games that are good, and there's some games that are bad, and then there's games like Jericho. Um, Jericho is kind of frustrating. It's frustrating because there's a lot of good things about it. It actually has a better story. It actually has more kind of lore to it than a lot of things. It has interesting settings. It has interesting gameplay mechanics. Unfortunately, it's burdened by a very repetitive and boring type of gameplay where you basically just have to shoot the same enemies over and over again. And when you fight more and more enemies, you kind of have the same things. Basically, all the enemies in the game are some variation of weird demon like zombie things that you have to shoot like weak points on to kill, and they're like these like big tumors or whatever. You have to keep shooting them, and you're like, could I have a bit more variety? Could I maybe have like some enemies I have to kill in different ways? Well, there's a couple boss fights like that, but overall the enemies are fairly similar. I mean, you get some kind of cool stuff like you get to fight Roman Centurion zombies, you get to fight like Sumerian zombies, but overall it's just kind of repetitive, and the levels kind of go on forever. But it's not terrible. It's a very good concept of a game, and we'll just go into detail about it. So Jericho actually, surprisingly enough, has a really good backstory. That's because Clive Barker wrote it. Now, I don't know much about Clive Barker. Apparently, he's a horror writer who's gay and a Christian. Kind of a strange combination, but yeah, you can definitely see both of those things in this game. Um, so the backstory of Clive Barker's Jericho is that the first thing God created was the firstborn. The firstborn was something God made before humanity, and it is the strongest thing in existence. It's so strong that God found Himself incapable of destroying it. The firstborn is both male and female. It neither ages nor dies. It's not truly alive either. It's in essence just kind of there. So God could not contain it, and the firstborn kind of rampaged across the earth. And then a group of ancient Sumerian sorcerers were able to seal the unborn in a pocket dimension called the box, at the cost of their own lives and being eternally trapped within the box. Um, they can only steal the unborn for so long, and every couple of decades, every couple of centuries, it's up to a group of heroes to go and defeat the unborn and do another round of the sealing ritual. Every time the sealing ritual is done, though, the box expands and more of the world is taken into it. I think it's like 10 or 20 kilometers each time. So although it's going very slowly, one day it will swallow all of the world as they keep having to add seal after seal after seal um, to keep the firstborn under wraps. And that's kind of how the game plays. There are, I think, 5 levels. There is a World War II level where the 7 heroes from that time period are a group of British soldiers from that army's occult department, and you fight Nazis. There's a Middle Ages level in which you have to fight the remnants of a failed crusade, most disturbingly child crusaders. And there's like a group of knights who helps you out. Then you have to go and fight a group of Romans are the next stage. So you get help from a group of centurions. And then finally, the last level is the Sumerian priests. So there's actually a fair amount of variety in environments. There's kind of like a medieval one. Kind of the more modern ones are just kind of like more generic, kind of dark FPS, and it looks more like a box. But the deeper you go, the weirder stuff gets. Once you get to like Roman and medieval times, things start to just get really weird, dark. There's a lot of parts in the game where the two teams have to split up. It's pretty interesting. So, Jericho team is the modern kind of group of heroes who has to go in and reseal the breach. Now, they actually put a lot of thought into this, kind of surprisingly enough. So let's see here. Who are the characters again? Your character is Captain Devin Ross. Your special, by the way, okay, so Jericho is a team from the Department of Occult Warfare, which is kind of like the U.S.'s psychic special forces. Now, I know it sounds kind of lame, but they actually put some thought into this. So your character is Captain Devin Ross. So he is a psychic healer. So his two abilities are to revive people from the dead. So if a squad member goes down, you revive them. And he can stay together in the aftermath of his death. Because he dies extremely early in the game, and you're kind of a disembodied ghost that can possess each individual squad member. So at any one time, you're possessing a squad member, and the rest of the team is controlled by the AI, which is kind of interesting. So you have 6 other characters you can play with. So I mean that's kind of neat. Or I guess it's 7. Yeah, 7 other characters you can play with. Then we have Father Paul Rawlings, who is the team's priest. Although they kind of dildoed him. I think he has a daughter or something, and he's kind of like a religious universalist, despite being a Catholic priest. So as with all good priests in these video games, he wields 2 pistols, and he has kind of an angsty past that he talks about. He's the only other character who can revive people. Every character has 2 occult powers. He gets revival. Let me see, what is it called? They actually came up with pretty creative names for this stuff. Ghost Heal and Vlad's Curse, which lets him steal energy from enemies by draining their blood, which is kind of creative, actually. That kind of makes sense for a Catholic priest. Then we have Sergeant Billy Church, who's, I think, Japanese. So she was born to a snake-handling fundamentalist Christian sect. They believe that she was gifted with divine powers. Let's see here. They thought that she was a prophet, and the state took her in and experimented on her. And she remains paranoid that the cult will come looking for her, and has schizophrenia and dissociated personality disorder. And she is a sanguimancer, a blood magic user. Which allows her to create blood wards and fire wards to she's kind of a debuffer. She also uses a sword and a submachine gun. So we have a priest, a spirit healer, and a blood mage. So that's kind of interesting. So we have Billy Church. We have Lieutenant Abigail Black, who is an avid hunter who wanted a son but got a tomboy instead. So her father sexually abused her extensively, and she became a witch. They attempted to exorcise her, but yeah, she is just kind of a fairly standard witch. She has a sniper rifle with a grenade launcher, which is kind of a unique combination, and she has like a steerable bullet and telekinesis, which is kind of an interesting mix. We have Sergeant Frank Delgo, who is Mestizo and Chickasaw descent, and he has been trained in Chickasaw spiritualism and shamanism, and he has a fire spirit. He also has a chain gun. So he has a chain gun in one hand and a pistol in the other, like a 50 cal Desert Eagle, and he can also call upon his flaming dragon-like fire spirit that annihilates enemies. He also wears heavy armor. Then we have Captain Xavier Jones, who has, let's see here, who's the least interesting member of the team. He uses the same gun that your character does, probably because when your character dies, you might want to keep playing because they have a shotgun attachment, which is pretty useful. So he has astral projection and can take control of enemies, so that's pretty cool. And then we have one of the more interesting ones, Corporal Simone Cole, who has autism, and she was homeschooled, so she is afraid of being touched, fear of the dark, and fear of confined spaces. So she has a laptop built into her arm that she runs equations on. She is a reality hacker who uses chaos math. So we kind of have this interesting mixture of different like supernatural stuff. And I mean, they actually like seem to put some thought into it. The characters all kind of have distinctive personalities and backgrounds, and the dialogue's not bad. And we kind of have interesting environments. It's sad because it could have been classic. It could have been like an amazing horror game, but just the gameplay is kind of boring and repetitive. The other interesting thing about Cole and her reality hacking is she gets she hacks your team ammo. Whenever your team runs out of ammo, she types in a couple cheat codes basically, and she hacks reality to give your team more ammo, so you never run out. So they kind of took a lot of the ammo gathering out of the game. Periodically they just refill your ammo. So you will run out, but there will always be ammo just around the corner, which is kind of nice that they removed that aspect. So that's kind of cool. They also put a ton of customization in. Most of the guns you can customize. Like for Rawlings, you can change it from just bullet to I think there's normal bullet, I think there's burst, and I think there's explosive bullets. You can set the grenades, like you can have impact grenades, you can have time grenades, you can have bounce, you can have proximity grenades. You can set guns to auto, full auto, etc. You can change the types of grenades in the sniper rifle. There's all kinds of like interesting customization they put in, and it's really sad because like a lot of the game is really interesting, and you get to go back in time and back in time and back in time through all these different like varied environments. When Jericho kind of reaches kind of the furthest back you can go. Jericho Squad decides instead of trying to seal the Unborn to fight the Unborn. And then you have a boss fight where you have to fight the Unborn. I think you have to defeat all the Sumerian priests because they don't want you to try to unseal the Unborn. Try to fight the Unborn because if you die, then the Unborn will be freed. It's implied that the Unborn doesn't want freedom. He instead just kind of wants to be loved and not hated or feared. There is a kind of a traitor from Jericho Squad who appears throughout the game, and you have to he eventually kills the Unborn at the end of the game, which is kind of an interesting twist. There's a lot of different kind of bosses. There's a different one from each area, and you kind of find out their story, etc. Yeah, so I like the game. I like the premise. It's just so bad that it's not better. I mean, hopefully this sounds interesting because I know some of it's kind of Jericho been done from before, but it's been done pretty well. It's a game where the gameplay fails, but everything else is really good. And even aspects of the gameplay are kind of innovative and interesting. Controlling 7 characters is pretty fun. Being able to customize your weapons, having all the kind of broad variety of psychic powers, playing through different levels, but they just didn't design it very well, and it's just kind of repetitive and kind of too hard in a lot of spots. But that's Clive Barker's Jericho. Great idea, bad execution. This is Argent Templar signing out.